Today we've got a great guest, friend, patron, a person that I've known and respected for many years here in the industry. We're here with James Knox, owner, director of Savant Plant Tech, been a horticulturist for many years, and I think even out of the diaper. James, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. You guys?
We're doing awesome, man. I thank you for making time for us today. I definitely had you on my short list of people that I wanted to get on the podcast to introduce to the world and kind of give the world some of the perspective that somebody's been in the agricultural industry for as long as you have. Do you mind to just give us a quick overview of your life leading up to now, if you will? I know it's got a lot of different angles to it.
Yeah, it does. I come from a blue-collar family. We were actually definitely the definition of American self-made. Grew up fairly poor, but rich in family and wealthy in environment, maybe just not in money. But it was a great experience growing up, having to basically be a part of agriculture as a whole, as my family had one of the larger rhododendron and azalea nurseries in the 70s and 80s here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. We always grew our own food. We still grow our own food. My hobby greenhouse is a 30-wide, 96-foot-long food greenhouse. We still can and preserve.
Nice.
So I've been immersed in, the horticultural agricultural world all my life, whether it be out at the grandparents' house at the nursery, or out in the garden with the parents, or the landscaping career I had for just over a decade on the Oregon coast. I did super high-end landscapes for a lot of the wealthy people out there building homes and whatnot. Ran a real productive, actually, landscape business. And obviously I've been immersed in the canna and the hemp sector for quite some time. I've been doing that, really truly since before it was, quote, cool, right? I've been doing it since basically 96. So I got just over 2 decades underneath my belt now. In
very nice. That's very nice, man. I appreciate that. That's so the food crops. I mean, that's something we should definitely get to here in a few minutes in the conversation, because that's the other part. So with our podcast, it's Neo 420 Talks, the podcast talking all things cannabis and hemp, plus some other stuff. And that plus some other stuff, you hit it with that localized food. I mean, a lot of what we've been going through in our society and these different ailments and sicknesses that are making the pharmaceutical companies filthy rich have been at the backs of an unhealthy populace. So we've been really focused around the cannabis and hemp space, but we always like to give attention to what you were talking about, localized food, canning your own food. But let's talk about that in a minute. As far as the cannabis and hemp space, brother, I bet you have seen some changes happening over the last 2 years, because from what I've been seeing up here, a lot of people getting in to the industry, a lot of people not knowing what they're doing, and a lot of people failing right now.
Yeah, it's I don't know, just short of apocalyptic, quite honestly. I mean, the last 2 years has been very, there's been a significant metamorphosis of the industry in the last 2 years, but I mean, truthfully, I've been a part of the evolving industry since, I guess, day one regarding Colorado and the legality of recreational cannabis there. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Colorado trying to assist and consult and assist other large facilities who had really no business even probably growing anything, much less, we're talking, hundreds of thousands of square feet of plant product. Trying to help them with, standardized agricultural practices, standardized fertility packages, understand soil biology, et cetera, et cetera. So being immersed since really the development of Colorado up until now, oh man, what a roller coaster. And most people are unfortunately falling off that roller coaster almost as fast as they get on.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. I mean, I think it's almost like that, it's almost like that Steven Tyler, Aerosmith concert where you've got all these people that want to meet Steven Tyler, right? And they're like hanging around like almost groupies. And some of them jump in and, you know, take the picture or whatever, or go and party or whatnot, but it ended up not working out for them. You know, they didn't become friends with Steven. You know, it was just that one moment. And that's almost how I look at this industry. It's like people from all walks. I'm so enthralled and so interested about cannabis and hemp being this middle point for a lot of people's attention right now. But, you know, too many failures can give a bad reputation to an industry. And it
can. It has, really, kind of. I mean, I don't know, more now than ever, as you know, as we both know.
Yeah. Well, in Colorado, the place you mentioned, I mean, that was, besides California, that really set the roadmap. You know, Colorado was the place that everybody looked for the structure, the answers to where, like, what we can and can't do. And what was interesting is, as it moved to different states, it was a change in what we could and couldn't do, you know?
Yeah, there was no standardized protocol or SOP or just, you know, I don't know, you know, there's no cookie cutter, you know, canned answer for any of the states, which definitely alludes to a large part of the problem. And it makes sense to evolve from, you know, like, say, day one to day two, calling Colorado, say, day one, then Washington, day two, then you have Oregon, then you have California, and then you've got a bunch of other states, obviously, right now currently attempting or actually following suit, Michigan to be one of them, coming online here. I'm working with a group out in Michigan, actually, who will, without question, be a flagship enterprise out there, especially having contracted my services and ensuring their successes with production there. But I feel like the states made a half-hearted attempt to improve upon what the previous state before them did. But then you have Oregon, which is, of course, my native state, who I feel like absolutely shit the bed when it came to looking at what Colorado did, what Colorado and Washington did. And what we thought was going to be a better program ended up being just a complete goddamn disaster, based on who they would allow in, who they wouldn't, how they would allow money and investors to come into the state, and then just having really an open canopy with no cap. And it has just destroyed the cannabis market in Oregon. It's a fucking apocalypse here, more than it is in any other state right now, without question.
Yeah, man, it's unbelievable to me. You know, I'm never the type to point fingers unless it's so damn obvious that you just have to. It's like you can't not see it. And it's so interesting here, you know, in Oregon, you know, that we're talking about now. They're getting there's a lot of terrible press out there. The federal, you know, government with the state attorney, you know, made some comments out of the Oregon Live magazine and a couple of other places, the Oregonian, I think, about how they were going to put a stop to all of the overproduction here in Oregon. And I just thought to myself, I was like, damn, like, the feds don't have to make that statement. That should have been something that was supervised from the regulatory agency that was put in place to make sure this program worked correctly, right?
Absolutely. You know, Oregon was the analogy I would use for Oregon would be the same thing for, like, the miners for California and the gold rush back in the day. There was a green rush here to Oregon because they allowed money to come from anywhere. You didn't have to have a state residency. You didn't have to really do it. You could literally just pack your shit from wherever you were, show up in Oregon, buy a piece of property, and go for it. And it ruined our state. It brought in a bunch of people that, quite honestly, in my mind at this point, they don't belong here. They don't understand the community. They don't understand what it's done to our local community and our local providers, because I still feel like some of the very best cannabis product on planet Earth is grown in the Pacific Northwest. And when I say the PNW, I actually mean a large portion of Oregon, Northern California, and parts of Washington. I mean, because if you look at the actual PNW footprint, like say in the Farmer's Almanac, you'll notice that encompasses those geographical regions. But what happened here in Oregon is kind of an embarrassment and an absolute disaster, and it absolutely put the wood in the hurt to us local Oregonians that were trying to make a run at this because of all of this outside investment and all these Wall Street guys and all these what I like to call suits. And I've had my own interaction with a team of suits that left me high and dry in a $120,000 flesh wound in my business, of which, thank God, I didn't even proceed forward in it because of what happened with the wreck market. So even a guy like myself can get razzle-dazzled and kind of get bullshitted and, quite honestly, get conned because of how Oregon allowed others with, I guess, unlimited funds to come in and pitch their program and try to do what they do. I just it's a sad situation, and I have a lot of colleagues and a lot of friends that are absolutely struggling, and they're looking around kind of going, well, what in the hell do I do next? Because I've invested my life savings, my retirement, my own home, my this, my that, and now we're at ruin, and I have really nothing left to even start over with. And I mean, that is disheartening to say the least. And I mean, we're just talking about growers. I'm not even talking about the storefronts that provide these products to these growers. I'm not talking about the distribution channels for like the larger work situations and the greenhouse facilities and other large scale operations. I mean, I'm talking about the smaller guys or the middle-sized guys. At the end of the day, I bet there's going to be no more than a couple dozen entities that dominate this state, and there won't be anybody left after that. And that's maybe 2-3 years out from now. The small guy, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the craft cannabis, and I absolutely am one of their biggest advocates. But look at history, look at the development of capitalist society, look at the development of business and how it evolves. And you can't ignore history, even though humankind has a terrible habit of doing that. History says that's really what's coming down. And there will be a massive thinning of the herd in the next year to 2 years. And most of that thinning of the herd is just going to become by the way of misfortune and bankruptcy and people having to reinvent themselves at age 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, which is just shitty. Really is.
There's no word. Yeah. And that's why I love you, brother, is because, I mean, me and you are so similar on like, call it what it is. Like, and there needs to be more, I mean, everybody throughout time, as you just mentioned about history, I am an astute observer of how people hijack words. And they fucking take them, like sustainability, it got hijacked. Organic got hijacked. Like the green rush got hijacked. Like all of these words get hijacked by some entities, right? But this whole movement that was started by patient-driven caregivers, back in California, and even back, I mean, when we look at the laws back here, in Oregon, the legislation, I think it was back in like 68. It was a long time ago, as far as when Oregon was the first state to put, cannabis in a legal category. But then it was changed thereafter, and then California made it. But through all these different changes, it was always intended to be a movement for the people. Not a movement for conglomerates, not a movement for corporations. I'm a capitalist. I mean, we live in a capitalist society, but as you said, when you look at history of industry development, there is a plight to what we saw was going to happen, and now it seems like the entire industry of all of us that are the people that started it, there's more competition that's been embedded into us. So we're competing against each other, trying to grow the cheapest, the least amount of money that we have to spend to produce a pound of high quality flour. And that's not
Correct.
what the whole game is about. It's about growing quality, consistency, and having it available for people. And now, the whole focus, in my opinion, has gotten changed, away to, instead of us talking about what kind of medicine we can provide for each other and how we can grow this dank-ass weed, it's talking about, are we in the red or are we in the black? What are the financial portfolios? Like all of the rhetoric has changed. It's really not fun, Like before, it was a job. It was fun. You felt good about doing it. And now I go into grows all the time. I go into retail spaces. I go into extraction labs. The fun, happy faces that were on those people a year ago is not on people anymore. It's just an oddity that's happening.
I'm definitely guilty of the same thing. It became no more fun pretty much at the end of last season, after multiple accounts, for whatever reason, took on product that I would deliver to them to grow their crops. Didn't tell me they had run out of money, but they did. And then they didn't pay me. And then I come to end of season, still not paying me. Then the suit thing happened, which is a massive flesh wound. So, last year, I think, was like a breaking of the back year for a majority of this industry, where it's not fun anymore. And now I've become a debt bill collector, and it's just bullshit. And having to just even deal with those stresses. Guy like myself, I've probably lost more money than I would say a good portion of Americans may ever make in their life, right? But that's business. You take risk, high reward, low risk, low reward. Business is business. You can't win every time. We try, but you can't. Right. But you look at what happened between last year and this year, you're exactly right. The fun is pretty much gone, and the only guys having any fun seem to be the fat fucks in suits and ties that control all of the workers, who really are the ones that should be yielding a majority of the reward.
That's right.
And they're not. And it seems like those fucking guys always end up squeezing the guys that put them on the plate and on the deck out anyways, and it just all ends up being a suit and tie owned situation, which becomes very generic and very unappealing to a majority of the masses. Yet the masses, and here's an analogy that may hit home for everybody. You talked about producing what you can for as little as possible. Well, what other industry does that? Well, that's an easy layup. The fucking food industry does that. The food crop farmers. How much biomass can I produce to put into the feeding trough for America, and how cheap can I do it? Well, what is that going to harbor? That's not going to harbor nutrient-dense food. That's for damn sure. Well, if you don't have nutrient-dense food, then you end up having a populace that may or may not be susceptible to more ailments, disease, health in general goes down. Well, what the fuck do you think is going to happen with the canna, too? That's why the entire state, and honestly, a majority of the cannabis industry, has so much influx of boof or shit material or mids or whatever you want to call it. Shit that you and I would look at and be like, there's no fucking way I would ingest that, smoke that.
Yeah.
That material's for the fucking compost pile,
That's right.
And that's exactly what's going on right now. It's the same in the food industry, and we know which entities pretty much dominate and control that, and how ironic those entities now are in our industry and in control of one of the largest, in control now is a different word, own the previous largest product wholesaler in our industry. It should be pretty transparent for most people that are at least paying half-ass of an attention, right? That the industry is not gone, and there will still be some of us specialized product service providers, some of us that will hold the line because that massive gold-plated carrot dangled in front of us doesn't interest us, because some of us really, truly can't be bought. They say every man has their price. Maybe that's true, but maybe that price is a choice between endless amounts of money that gives you false love and false satisfaction and false integrity or false material wealth, opposed to somebody that might be like, I don't need that shit, because at the end of the day, I don't need that, and I'd rather have friends, family, and a wholesome life. You know, I mean, I laugh. I'm still driving the same fucking truck that I bought in 2008. Most of the homies I got have probably cycled through 3, 4, 5 different trucks already. I mean, I ain't too proud. I'll drive this fucking thing until the goddamn wheels fall off before I go buy a new one. Where I see this industry where, like, they want that new best thing or that next best toy or this or that, you know? I mean, us self-made poor kids or blue-collar kids or farm kids that come up on our own seem to have a different perception on what things are worth, right? I would rather have a $20 plate of food that was nutrient-dense than a fucking $2.50 Big Mac with fries and a fucking Coke from McDonald's. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I ate that kind of shit. I mean, we're talking years and years and years and years ago. I mean, I didn't even eat that shit in college. You know, I'd rather eat fucking rice and beans than go down to fucking Mickey D's.
Well, that's the thing that kind of bothers me, bro, is that, you know, we have and it's relevant to what you're just saying about the whole McDonald's. I haven't ate at damn McDonald's, I don't think, in at least 8 or 9 years, and I was forced to the time I did. But it's a choice that you make to put it in your body, right? That's really what it comes down to. It's not my wallet. It's not the damn, like, whatever other excuse. It's like, if you can drive to damn McDonald's to get your food, you could drive to wherever and buy some wholesome, whole food, fresh, organic, but true nutrient dense, not to be empty calories. The cannabis space is so similar because we are deciding this industry based on where we put our dollars as a consumer. The relevancy with that whole, you know, the food industry and the similarity with this industry carries over with the purchasing power of the consumer. These big-ass conglomerates, you know, we could have stopped Anheuser-Busch a long time ago, just picking on them. Anheuser, if y'all want to send us some sponsorship money, that's cool. But, you know, we're not going to drop you guys names in a positive way. But Anheuser-Busch, compared to these microbreweries that are out here, these specialized, you know, drink creators, that's the drink that I want. I don't want to go to the grocery store and buy that cheap-ass, you know, 1 billion of them produced. That doesn't make me feel valuable as a consumer. And it makes me question the nutrient of it. You know, like, if you can produce 1 billion of these, how are they good for you? How can you keep that quality control there in place? So with cannabis, if we just don't buy their shit, if we call out people like you, me, like we patrol our own industry, right? There's a regulatory environment here. But if I know that so-and-so that's doing so-and-so is doing that, I should let you know. And then you let your group know, I know my group know, and then we just don't buy from them, right?
Right. You know, but then, of course, I mean, you got to also bring to the forefront that, you know, our industry's always been predicated on tongue-in-cheek and keep your friends close, your enemies closer. And you and I mean, I would classify you as fairly old school. I definitely know I am, and I hold myself to a very different kind of regard in that regard. And there's that whole, like, snitching and being a little tattletale situation, you know, too, where there's a difference between educating the masses on right and wrong and just straight calling out the fucking idiots that are just doing the super shady shit. You know, within the industry, we actually do know who they are because we can read between the lines, unlike the masses. Unfortunately, it's not the masses' fault that they don't know that product XY is actually trash because it looks good in the box, right? But then they go to ingest it or take it. It's like, I mean, I laugh because I actually do prefer to smoke my sun-grown or my head stash only plants where I take my Oregon 4, and that is my head stash. And it's outdoor produced in a compost pile that's been aged for a minimum of a year, blah, 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 right? Well, that material may aesthetically not look as good as some of this blingy chemical grown stuff. And so the irony is as Americans, what do we look for? The flash bang and the pretty. Well, if it's a bigger flash bang and it's prettier, then it must be better. Well, we know that's not always true. Look at how some other industries have evolved, and it's just shameful that we know there's a lot of this shit going on, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it other than just, like you say, vote with our dollar and single out or source out those that we know that are producing sustainably, truly, giving their best foot forward, and not literally just looking at the bottom line and hoping that, they see black ink instead of red.
Right.
Well,
you have to do it all the time.
Oh,
you have to do it from the source of, like, you supply a lot of equipment with your company that we're going to mention here in a minute for sure. And I want you to tell our audience about what you do, but you have to make a decision on if you put that shitty quality equipment on your shelves or not, or if you sell it, right? Like, we have to do this in every part. It's like, why don't we do it to something that's for our health? Like, hemp and cannabis is here for us as an industry, as our health of everything, Like, let's do that.
The fucked up thing about capitalism is that the ethical choice or the right choice, typically in business, and I'm speaking to, like, hard goods, is usually not the correct choice for good business, as in black ink. And I have suffered greatly at my 2 retail stores and at my distribution center for growing products and whatnot, because I have refused to sell certain brands, certain types of equipment, because I hold myself to a higher standard, because I understand the value of a better made product, not only for myself as a business owner, but as the customer. Because if I sell you a shitty product and it breaks on you, one, you're pissed off at me because it's my fault, even though it's not my fault, because you made the decision to buy that shitty product, not me. I had the nice one sitting right next to it, but you bought the cheaper, shittier one because you felt like there was better value there. But then it broke. And then it wastes your time to come back to bring it to me. And then it wastes my time, and any profit I may have realized from that is now evaporated, and maybe even backwards, because I got to warranty the damn thing. Then I got to make the sale or the patron feel okay about their poor choice and either fix it for them or then upgrade them to something better, which then I'm left with a shitty, inferior product that a manufacturer, kind of like the ones that have just merged, may not even fucking warranty for me now. So now I'm backwards twice. So it's been a real son of a bitch to navigate that side of the industry for the number of years I have, which, I mean, let's see, I opened the stores in 2010. So, I mean, I'm 8 years deep into the hydro stores, and oh my God, the hydro stores are just on their face. Fortunately, we do better than most, which, I mean, I am very blessed and fortunate for, but the reputation I carry in the industry and the way that I have stayed loyal to the brands I support for my entire career, I'm not talking just for a year or two. You can look at who I run with, and you know who it is. We still run with each other. We're still all friends. We still work together. I mean, I was hanging out with one of my longest standing and closest colleagues over the last 3 days down in Northern California, and I still run with the same fertilizer company I've supported since day one. I mean, it's just rough, man. It's weird because the consumer wants the best product for the cheapest price, and God damn it, that's an equation that doesn't balance. And until the masses understand that and truly latch onto that, we're not going to have near the successes or the potentials that we could. And it's because of big business. And that's just how it's fucking designed. And it's shitty, and it is what it is. So you got to find your place in it somewhere.
Well, that's the word that I'm going to leave with our audience as we conclude. And I appreciate you, brother. Where can people find you at if they want to get in touch with you? I know this is not going to be our only time to talk here at Neo 420 Podcast, Neo 420 Talks, the podcast talking all things cannabis and hemp, plus some other stuff. Where can people get in touch with you, brother?
Well, like I was saying, I've got 2 retail stores, Samurai Grower Supply, here in Albany and Corvallis, Oregon. So if you're a retail customer or if you're a smaller grower looking to find the better and what we consider the elite products of the industry, you can find them at my retail store. You can go to www.samuraigrowersupply.com. Now, if you're a larger producer or if you're looking for larger infrastructure, as in building out your facilities. I also own Savant Plant Technologies, and that's where we do all of our big work. That's where I, do all the big work for Royal Gold soils. It's where I do all the big work for Mills Nutrient and the fertilizers. That's where all the Apex Biologicals comes out of. That's where all the Fantech equipment also comes out of. And so I do wholesale distribution out of there too. So other store owners can look to me at Savant to provide for them products that they may not have access to elsewhere. And that's where also all the large facility, growers and buyers come out, where we do all the greenhouses as well, all the plastics, environment control. So you can find me at www.savantplanttech.com. And for the hemp growers, I also own KLR Farms, and I'm one of the biggest hemp sourcing brokers in the state. I have multiple contracts in hand, real contracts, not this pie in the sky bullshit that everybody has been basically burned by for the last couple of years. And you can still find me at klrfarms.com, or you can reach me direct through my Instagram accounts, which is Garden Warlock James, and or KLR Farms, and or Savant Plant Tech.
Right on, brother. Well, I appreciate all of that. Reach out to James, Mr. James Knox, if anything that you need in that world audience, because he's one of the people, one of the tops that I go to in order to get this achieved. James, I appreciate your time, brother. Let's talk about get you back on here soon so we can get a revision of everything. But I appreciate your time. The audience does. Here at Neo 420 Talks, the podcast, talking all things cannabis and hemp. Stay tuned to more interviews coming up in the near future. Continue to support us over at Facebook with the at Neo 420 Media is our tag there at Facebook. Go over, like, share, and follow. Check us out at www.neo420.com. Check out all the things that we've got going on over there, and support us at the shop for your T-shirts and CBD tinctures. Thanks for all the time. Till next time, friends, stay medicated.